Now, we're very comfortable teaching people how to develop software. We're very comfortable teaching functional skills. But again, we've never really crossed the Rubicon of understanding what mental and emotional skills are required and helping people develop those.
Welcome to the Mindfulness Experience podcast. My name is Keith Fiveson. On this podcast, I spoke with HR visionary Michael Foster, who is the founder at the Human Capital Institute and chairman at the Institute for Organizational Science and Mindfulness. Michael is a very interesting person who brings a fresh perspective on how to apply mindfulness in organizations by focusing on the science and how it can lift and shift mindset and performance of individuals, teams, and departments. Michael is also a very big-hearted man who has 10 children, both biological and adopted, from Russia, Ethiopia, Kazakhstan, and he has a wealth of information and talent as well as experience in multiple areas and industries working in the C-suite. Enjoy the show. Hey, Michael Foster. It is so nice to have you here on the show today. I really want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about what you're up to in the organizational science and mindfulness area. And you're a founder, past chairman of the Human Capital Institute. You've been involved in the winery area, which is fascinating to me. But you've spent a lot of your life in the area of really helping people to develop what I guess we call human capital. So what is happening in the human capital area?
Well, hey, Keith, thanks a lot for inviting me to be with you. Really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. Happy to jump in on that question, what's happening in the human capital area. I guess there's a couple of huge trends that we see importantly aligned with what we're doing at the Institute for Organizational Science and Mindfulness. The human capital function, if you will, has been trying to mature over the past 30 years into a strategic function that works with people to optimize their value, their individual value and collective value to the organization. And what we're finding and what we all are aware of is occurring because of the huge COVID pandemic is that people, human capital, if you will, are being very impacted, extraordinarily more impacted even than they have been over this sort of past 30 years with crushing amounts of uncertainty and stress and anxiety and worry. There's sort of no reason to go back and articulate all those things, but that has become a top of mind issue in the human capital capital space.
So one of the things I'm very aware of, and again, I was just I took, just full disclosure, I took your program, the IOM facilitator at the workplace program is very good, and I really was very moved, touched, and inspired by your reframing the discussion around how organizations can look at mindfulness, right? So you've really taken it on in terms of a new idea or a new science-based approach to it, whereas in the past, a lot of people might have thought of it as kind of woo-woo. Can you talk about that and what the differences are? Because you're really kind of, I think, opening up a pathway for organizations to kind of look at this in a different light. What is that about, and how might they look at mindfulness differently than they have?
Right. Well, I do think mindfulness has kind of proceeded through a couple of major stages. The first stage was potentially woo-woo in the sense that lots of people didn't understand what mindfulness could do. The programs were coming out of, traditional Buddhist practices. There was still a lot of kind of Buddhist worldview infused into, into the programs. I mean, that's logical. This is where the concept of mindfulness came from. I'd say the second generation, if you will, started, about 10, 15 years ago with Google actually beginning to take the more performance type elements of what had been developed to date, which was essentially the mindfulness-based stress recovery curriculum by John Kabat-Zinn, and beginning to sort of add on to that curriculum the notion that, stress relief, stress management is the critical, true epidemic of our time and true need. And they began to build on that. And that's kind of where we are today. For the last decade, all of us have thought about mindfulness through a secular, science-based lens that we have a sense can be applied inside an organization, to change behaviors and to change cultures and to change mindsets, but very much with an objective to do that through stress management, to do that through reducing panic and fear and stress and worry and concern. That's a very therapeutic approach. And so we like to think of this generation that we're in right now as therapeutic mindfulness, okay? Where people expect to take a mindfulness course, corporations expect to bring mindfulness teachers in, and they expect to have a therapeutic experience where they're taught how to reduce stress, how to be happier. It's about health and well-being. Mindfulness, however, is much broader than that one, sort of application. Now, that application is very, very broad, and almost everything else that you can do with mindfulness begins with this process of being able to calm the brain and calm the body. And so it's not that it's not important, but it's not the only thing it can do. So what companies are beginning to understand, and what we're hoping to help raise awareness on, is that, if we can help our people become calmer and more patient and be able to change their relationship to the stress that's really holding them back, then there's a number of other ways that mindfulness can be applied personally and organizationally to improve very specific kinds of capabilities, soft skill capabilities, and to solve specific kinds of business problems. And so we see this as the next generation, if you will, of mindfulness, completely secular, completely science-based, not just kind of confirmed, sporadically about science, but built from the ground up through a science perspective, and most importantly, applied to the organizational needs, not just the individual needs. So applied to help create capabilities and solve problems that are important in an organizational.
I get what you're saying, and I really like the way you kind of reframed a lot of it during the course, and I want to get into some of that. But I want to go back to the whole idea of stress, because many people are dealing with stress and trauma. And people don't like to talk about trauma, but, there's implicit trauma, there's explicit trauma. And, all you got to do is turn on the news cycle. All you got to do is take a look at the world and see what's going on. And, you can get traumatized, if you will. And you don't want to take that on in an organization, because stressed employees really see customers as problems, demanding or troubling. And, I get the idea of mindfulness, and it's certainly needed to look at customers like they have a need, and you have to be present. But within the scope of that, I'm wondering, I was talking with someone yesterday around the idea of compassion. So I know within the framework of your course and what you've been up to, that there is this whole, you have this wonderful kind of, I guess it's a hierarchical, or it's a the pyramid structure, right? Where you go from breath to awareness to attention to values to insight. So and in the values area, you have this emotional states into behavioral traits. Can you talk about what mindfulness is as it relates to the stress area and why you're saying, the things you are about, well, you can do more. Well, what does that actually mean? I know what it trains. I know what it's up to, but I'm just wondering how you differentiate it, because you're still doing the stress stuff, but then you're talking about something more. So what does that mean?
Yeah. And Keith, I think I know the framework that you're referring to. And, one of the important ways that we sort of need to deconstruct mindfulness from the therapeutic lens to the more science-based and to the more capabilities lens that companies need is to understand that mindfulness really is a series of mental and emotional skills. And there are different kinds of skills that the broad mindfulness umbrella is able to teach, and that those specific kinds of skills can be mapped to or applied to solve very specific kinds of, human performance issues and organizational issues. So that's a starting point. We tend to think of mindfulness as a big amorphous group of wonderful exercises and wonderful concepts. And if you learn all these wonderful exercises and wonderful concepts, then you've become quote unquote mindful, and somehow that will reduce your stress, and somehow that will make you more emotionally intelligent, and somehow that will, but that's that sort of cartoon where it's a lot of calculations, and then a miracle happens in the middle. We all have seen that cartoon, I think. So that's the miracle. And what we're trying to do is to try to demiracleize that and take a look at what the structure of these specific mental and emotional skills are. What are the kinds of exercises and practices that are inside the mindfulness umbrella? How do we group those together based on what their outcomes or results are? How do we then take each of those baskets and, again, map them to or apply them to the right kind of business problem? Okay, because they are very different. All of them are important. All of them are wonderful practices. All of them start with stress reduction. All of them start with the notion that we're under stress. That's occluding our neocortex. It's diminishing our capability to operate fully. Okay, but this framework is about, okay, what does it mean to operate fully, and what are the exercises that can sort of bring us online to do that?
So I get what you're saying, and I just want to provide some clarification or feedback to that. So what I get is that in many organizations, they're acting very reactively. There's a reactive process where they're not really totally sure about what the customer experience journey or what the service journey is, or how each of the departments kind of, provide their solutions or provide the framework for the solutions. So what they're doing is they're trying to figure that out. And then they're at the same point dealing with a staff that has a lot of what I call afflicted emotions. They're not really seeing the world right. They're reacting. And what you wind up with is sort of bad behavior. And it's not always good behavior. There are some people who are good. In most organizations, it's about 20 to 30% of the people are really high performers, and the rest of them, well, they're just hanging out, or you're trying to get rid of them anyway. But within your framework, within your idea or your reframing, what I really saw, which really attracted me, which is why I really wanted to talk about it on the show, is this whole idea of very proactive. Let's in a very proactive way look at the knowledge, the wisdom, the narratives in the organization. How are we really working with people departmentally? And then let's look at how we can use mindfulness as a way to up the overall proactive stance so that we can really breathe and have a different, have a different solution here, have a different outcome, so that really what you wind up with is a very conscious approach to mindfulness. So is that the science around it that we're talking about specifically?
Well, I'm not sure I'd describe that as the science.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a
Right.
bit different. I hope we can get into that.
It's more of a framework, I guess, discussion. Yeah.
But yeah, when we think about this framework, this is another lens to look through. Okay, when we talk about people problems in organizations, and the fact that it is usually the people problem as opposed to the technical problem of any kind of project or any kind of objective that we have, that is much more difficult to manage, and is often it's the point of failure many more times than bringing the technical solution to solve that problem. Well, I think what if we look at why that is, okay, it's because, first of all, we're all individuals, okay? That those people that come together in that project are first of all bringing their own world into the company, and they might be having problems with their kids, they might be going through a divorce, they might be feeling horrible about themselves and guilty, they might be experiencing so much stress that they can't operate functionally. We have never, as organizations, given our people effective tools to take care of those issues, so that the moment they walk through the front door, they're bringing a happier, healthier, less stressful, joyful, engaged person to work.
So stop there for a minute. So that's really good, because one of the things I get from that is what you're really doing is changing the mindset and really using the science behind it to teach people how to manage their thoughts, their emotions, their feelings, and improve the quality of their personal as well as their overall relationships at work. Really, like it's not necessarily about work. Yeah, work is where you are, but it's giving them the tools, the personal tools, to improve the quality of their lives and the contribution that they make.
Exactly. First of all, it's the quality of their lives. If someone is unhappy, they're going to bring that to work. You don't have two brains. You only have one. So if, that brain is unhappy and, occluded, if you will, you're going to bring that into work. So the first step is really helping people with the tools to help themselves, not just get rid of stress, but also to understand how the brain is operating, understand negativity, understand reactivity, understand, those elements of unconscious operation that is really keeping them from achieving happiness and health and wholeness in their own relationships. The second box, if you will, is that person comes into work, okay, and work itself requires a specific set of mental and emotional skills. Now, we're very comfortable teaching people how to develop software. We're very comfortable teaching people the mechanics of sales conversation. We're very comfortable teaching functional skills. But again, we've never really crossed the Rubicon of understanding what mental and emotional skills are required and helping people develop those. Now, what mental and emotional skills are required are essentially the soft skills that we all know about, right?
That's really the software. That's the internal software, right? Those are the things that make people operate the way they do, right?
Well, that's exactly right. So think of mental and emotional skills as being the human skills like trustworthiness or integrity or motivation or engagement, okay? And we don't and never have done any kind of dedicated or very good job of trying to teach what those things are. We just expect that people are going to come and bring their own motivation, their own engagement, their own, trustworthiness. And so companies are not used to teaching those kinds of skills. Now we're beginning to understand the importance of them, and we're beginning to bring in training for them. But the training that is available to companies, for the most part, are courses and training programs that teach about soft skills. None of these programs, that may be a gross generalization, but the great unwashed majority of soft skills programs only teach you about what it looks like to be trustworthy. They teach you about, right? They teach you about empathy.
Right.
But they don't make you more empathetic.
Right.
They don't, right?
Right.
They don't make
Right.
you more trustworthy.
Right.
So the big difference with mindfulness is that mindfulness is actually the engine that literally trains, your neural pathways and circuits and in the brain, and trains your behaviors, trains your emotions to actually embody those soft skills, not just learn about
Well,
them.
let's stop there for a moment, because for many people, this might sound a little woo-woo, right? It's sort of like, okay, how does it do that? And I had an image as you were talking that, it's like going and digging for oil, or drilling for oil in some respect. You don't necessarily see it on the surface, but when you start drilling in for oil, it's there. And you've, in your outline, you said mindful of what you're doing is you're providing mindfulness as a series of mental and emotional skills, all science discipline, a system of brain management, a process of neural training, an antidote for stress and anxiety, a force multiplier for performance, a path to self-knowledge, a foundation for behavioral change. Great. And you also said it's not religious or spiritual, it's not new age, it's not associated with any belief system or a required meditation practice. But at the same point, you've made sort of a big claim here. And I think the industry, and I'm a practitioner in full disclosure of mindfulness, and I have a practice, and it's a very deep practice. I've been doing it for over 25 years. So point being is, what happens in your view? What happens, because this is a neurological, physiological kind of transformation that's supposed to be happening just by people sitting and being aware of their breath, or being aware of their body, or being aware of their emotions. Why, how in the world do you have any, like, what? What is
I understand. I understand. I think what you're asking here, Keith. Yeah, these are huge claims.
Yeah,
these are huge claims.
Right.
Let me correct a couple of the things that you mentioned there. You don't accomplish these huge claims without meditation. You don't accomplish mindfulness without truly understanding the concepts and attitudes of mindfulness. All of the traditional tools, all the traditional skills, all of the traditional concepts of traditional mindfulness belong in this solution. Okay, this is not.
So it's not like it's not like you go into the factory, or you know those things where you go into the machine and you come out. You go in one side with an old suit, and you come out with a new suit. That it's not.
Then a miracle happens.
There's no miracle here.
No,
it's a practice.
No.
I
mean, think about the gold standard in mindfulness today, which is MBSR, which is an absolutely wonderful program. John Kabat-Zinn conceptualized that in like the late 70s by saying, hey, in this Buddhist practice that I'm becoming more and more proficient in, I can see attitudes, I can see exercises, I can see concepts that could actually help my pain clinic patients. Okay, and so when he built that, he obviously extracted a subset of mindfulness, which is, a 2,000-year-old tradition with, classically with deities, and, it's not MBSR, it's not Buddhism.
Right.
Okay. He extracted a specific series of things that worked extremely well for the purpose that he applied them to. So what we're talking about here is simply it's the same process John Kabat-Zinn went through, which is let's go to this trove, of incredible, traditions and incredible skills and so forth, and let's look at the ones that have been scientifically proven, right? And let's move those practices and traditions and concepts and worldviews into a new course that's developed, or a new way of thinking of mindfulness that is, strictly scientific, and really from the perspective not of people who need a therapy for extreme pain and stress, but from the perspective of an organization that wants to help people strengthen their human capabilities and become happier and more effective in the world. So that there's no magic there. It's kind of the hard work of creating a new vantage point on mindfulness, and deconstructing the components, which again is exactly what John Kabat-Zinn did to create the first secular program, and reassembling those components in a way that makes sense. So
that's very exciting. That's very, very, very exciting, Mike. And you've really done an incredible job in sort of formulating the strategy and the dialogue around it. And you've created this wonderful organization, the Institute for Organizational Science and Mindfulness. You are offering. I'm aware of the time, and I'm aware that we've sort of gone down the rabbit hole, and there's a lot of stuff to pick at. But organizations who are concerned or want to find out more information, you're offering through IOSM different courses and different programs around that. What kind of programs are you offering to the public now?
Well, remember that we are a nonprofit association. We're not a company. We're not trying to build products to sell.
Right.
We're trying to collect the people that understand, or people that want to understand, this next generation of science and mindfulness.
You have a rich library, and you have a rich resource pool there. So that's fantastic. So you're really empowering organizations to go ahead and learn more and develop their own programs. Yeah. And what kind of programs?
Well, again, we have a pretty robust content library, and we are helping and conducting research.
Well, you have
research
sales,
is a big
health,
part.
Sales, health. You have all these different verticals that you're working with, and and also all these different horizontals: sales, customer service, support, things of that nature, right? So you've really broken it down in a number of buckets, if you will.
Well, we think it's important to be able to make it relevant to the specific capabilities that different functions within an organization, for example, need. So a leader needs a different set of professional capabilities than someone in software development or someone in customer service. And so what we've tried to do is develop research, both the physical research, but now also leadership, management, organizational development, organizational behavior research, to be able to say, okay, as a sales organization or as a sales group, what are the specific capabilities that, are associated with success, and what are, if you go all the way back to mindfulness, what are the concepts and exercises that are most relevant to those specific kinds of capabilities?
Right.
And so what we're trying to build is a curriculum that someone in sales, for example, does not need to become a practitioner of all of the concepts of mindfulness to be able to benefit from specific mental and emotional skills that mindfulness has specific tools
Mm-hmm.
to grow.
Right. And you've really created an incredible library and an incredible, you know, information pool that really shows how these have really been adopted. I mean, I know that you've got information there around their various business tools or elite organizations or Fortune 100 companies, technology companies, healthcare, finance, nonprofit companies, government. I mean, you've really created a wonderful pool of resources. So people, if they want to get more information about the organization, where do they go and how do they wind up working with you? Is there a membership fee? Is there something that they can do to get involved? And,
Yep.
What do they do?
Sure. Well, we are actually launching a new website as we speak. In fact, Monday
Perfect.
morning, this is Friday, and Monday morning that'll actually emerge into the public realm. And that URL is www.iomindfulness.org.
Beautiful.
And so if you go take a look at that website, you'll see a whole range of options that you can interact with. We do have a membership program. Associate membership is absolutely free, and associate membership opens up access to a number of those resources. It also opens up access to our webcast events, which we do monthly, our own podcast events, which we're beginning to publish, and other kinds of resources. And then we have a full membership that unlocks kind of all of the research, all of the tools. It actually unlocks a significant amount of training. So if people want to begin to learn to build a mindfulness practice, there's a lot of training there as well. Great.
So it's a great resource. It's been a great opportunity to go ahead and help me personally to go ahead and look at reframing, as you say, the traditional model. Whether or not, I came through the MBSR, I came through the Buddhist practices, I came through the Zen practice, and that has its place, right? It has its place. But
yes.
From an organizational viewpoint, what really struck me and really why I wanted to have you on the show was to really talk about it from the framework of how to apply it, how to optimize it, and really how organizations can look at it in a new, fresh way that may be less less frightening to them in some regard, or less, less woo-woo. So, I think visiting the website again, www.iomindfulness and .com or .org. Right? There you go. And I really want to thank you, Mike, for taking the time to be on the show. I enjoy our conversations privately, and it's been great to see you and great to have you here.
Well, thank you, Keith. And again, thanks a lot for having us on, and good luck in this venture. You're doing great work.
Thank you for being a part of the Mindfulness Experience podcast. I hope you enjoyed this frank and honest discussion with Michael Foster. I also hope that you gained some valuable insights on how to lift up and apply the science of mindfulness in your organization. Please follow the podcast to connect to future ones as well. Subscribe, leave us a review, and suggest topics that you would like to hear. Connect with us on our social media platforms or visit our website at workmindfulness.com for more mindfulness experiences. Thank you again. See you on the next show. Take care.